Hi guys, this is my next video in my series of shorter videos, and today I'm going to be talking about contouring. I'm going to try really hard and not cough my way through this video because the last week I've actually been quite poorly and you can see I sound a little bit manly. Here we go. So today's video is all about contouring, and I promised I would do one about contouring because I get the impression that it's a little bit of a mystery to some people, but they also feel intimidated by it. So this mystification kind of makes them not want to go near it in case they get it wrong. And it's so hyped up everywhere. It's like in the shops everywhere you go, there's products for contouring. It's in the magazines, it's on the adverts, the TV. In makeup, it's taken for granted that you are naturally going to be sculpting the face in some way. So I thought I'd do a video to talk to you about the whole point of contouring, how it came about, how do you know where to do it and with what, and what products are there out there that you might want to avoid or reach for. Because all contouring products are great and they have their place, but they're not for everybody. So for example, I've got two different types of bronzer here with me today. I've got one that I don't know if you can see, it's actually got like a glisten in it. It's got like a real shimmer, gold particles in it. And the second one that I've got is a Bobbi Brown, and this is my favourite. But this bronzer is a little bit cracked in the middle where I've loved it so much, but this is actually completely matte. There is no shimmer to that whatsoever. So for sculpting, this one is perfect, whereas the other one gives more of a sun-kissed glow, and you can do a limited amount of sculpting with it. When I teach contouring to my students, I get them to use a lamp. And that is so that it casts light down on the face from above, so it's like an exaggerated form of sunlight. Now the whole concept of contouring came about when people started to want to emphasise the bone structure of the face, or hide things that they didn't like, or emphasise things that they wanted to have more of, or wished were bigger, or wanted to have on show a little bit more obviously. So highlighters and shaders came about, and I think in the industry now you hear the word bronzer more than you hear shader, or you hear contouring product. But when I say shader, I'm referring to the darker product that casts shadow and creates depth. When you're contouring, you're emphasising some parts and you're hiding other parts away. And what that does is that sculpts the face and gives emphasis to bone structure. So going back to the idea about the lamp, I ask my students to have a lamp above their head, and it's just kind of in front of them but above. And the reason I do that is because it exaggerates the effect of sunlight. So what it does is it casts a strong light down on the face, and it creates shadows where shadows naturally fall, but they're very much exaggerated, and it instantly enables my students to see where light naturally hits on the face and where shadow is naturally cast on the face. Now I brought along my trusty torch for this video, and I even put new batteries in it for it, and I thought I would be able to do a little example of what I do with my students, but I just gave it a trial run and it looks absolutely rubbish, so I'm not going to bother. I've got a lot of natural light sort of shining on me at the moment. If I just simply tilt, can you now see how there is shadow cast just across here? So you can actually see there's a natural contour being created just from a shadow. And if I lift my face back up again, it almost disappears. So when I'm contouring, I would actually, where that natural shadow sits, that's where I would put my contour product or my shader or my bronzer. But obviously you also have highlighters. Now I'm not biased towards Bobbi Brown at all, I just happen to be using Bobbi Brown products today. Here's my highlighter from Bobbi Brown. You can see it's got multiple shades in there. I particularly love this champagne at the bottom, which I use on my eyes as well. So this is the highlighter that I'm going to be using today, and I've also got a blusher product, and something that I use a lot at the moment is Dandelion by Benefit. I don't have a lot left, so it's going to be tricky for you to see the shade of it in the box, but you'll get a better idea of when I actually put it on. But actually you can see it's a really pretty pink. It's quite a light pink, It's quite a rose sort of pink. But I've used tons of it, and I only got this a year ago. So for me to get through a product that much in just a year, that's really good. It shows just how much I love it. This is the packaging it comes in. So it's Benefit Dandelion, and it's just a beautiful all year round pink. In my previous video, in my short series, it was all about blusher, and I showed you a technique that I use to find out where to best place your own blusher for your own bone structure, or if you're doing it on somebody else, you could use the technique for their face. But basically, it's around about the apple of the cheek, but it's very much working on bone structure. And if you're going to get your sculpting and your contouring exactly right, you've got to have a little bit of an awareness of the bone structure of the face. And it is namely the cheekbone, the zygomatic bone that comes across in like a bar, and it actually finishes in the apple of the cheek here. Now I should just say that on the market there are a hell of a lot of highlighters and bronzers, and some are matte and some are shimmery, and you can pick and choose as whatever suits you. But my only advice would be, if you are sculpting with your bronzer or contour product, if your aim is to sculpt, I would steer clear of shimmery bronzers, because what it does is it reflects light, and really what you want to do that is your highlighter product. So to have two products that are doing two separate jobs, both reflecting light, it's not going to give you the sculpting that you might be aiming for. When I am using contour products, I tend to look at the bone structure of the person that I'm doing it on, and I try and find their cheekbone, and just underneath it is where you're going to apply your sculpt, your shader or your contour or your bronzer product, whatever you like to call it. Some people don't just apply contour here, they also use it on the jawline, so I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So if I just pick up a little bit of my bronzer, and I really tap off the excess, because when you've done your base and then you put on too much of a blush or a bronze or something like that, it's very hard to undo and buff it back down again. You're going to come in from in front of the ear. Okay, now that sounds like you're going to create a big old stripe, but obviously we're going to blend it better than that. And I'm just going to bring it in really lightly. And you can just see it's starting to build up now. Now I think you can clearly see that that's actually added a hue, but I added such a little amount of products to the brush that I can afford just to build that up just slightly. So that's what I'm going to do. There we go, that's a little bit stronger now. Now in my last video about blusher, I talked about where the side of the face ends and it becomes the front flat part of the face. Not that we're flat, but imagine. And if you can imagine that now, where the side becomes the front, where that side ends, probably about here, you don't want your bronzer or your contour product to come any further forward than that, because then when you look at somebody face on, you're just going to see product around here, and that's when it becomes a little bit stripy. That's when it starts to look a bit like a stripe. Now can you see already that has just given my cheek a little bit more shape? And I don't really have that on that side quite so emphasised. So if I just whiz through the second side, you can see me even myself up so that I'm not going out lopsided. Okay, so that's about as much as I would do. Now I'm quite a subtle girl, she says, with bright red lips on, but I don't like to go over the top with things. One, because I find it a little bit too high maintenance. I just like a subtle hue of colour, and that has just given the illusion of more of a hollow than I've actually got under my cheekbone. So that's the sculpting that I'm talking about, and that's what we're trying to do, is create sculpt by creating shadow where there naturally isn't, or where there naturally is just a little shadow. So next I'm going to use my highlighter product. You might have heard me talk about this before. I have reviewed it in a previous video, and this is my Bobbi Brown Brightening Brick in shade Naked. Now, because this is so pretty and I know how much I love this, I'm going to use a massive great kabuki brush. This is actually the brush that came free with this bronzer. And I get on really well with it. So what I'm going to do is just sweep the product above the cheekbone, and then my blusher is going to go on the cheekbone but more to the front. Now, I don't know how obvious that is to you because I'm in such good natural lighting that actually it's kind of giving me a little bit of natural highlight and shadow anyway. So the last product I'm going to use today is my Dandelion. I've got to be honest with you, I don't normally go to this much effort, which you would have noticed if you've watched my blusher video. I don't normally do all of this every day. I would do this for a night out, all this sculpting and the bronze product with the highlight. Normally I'm a little bit highlight and a little bit of blusher and that's it. So here's my Dandelion, and I've just got a normal, this is actually a contour brush, but does not matter. If you have a bunch of brushes at home, makeup brushes, and they've all got names on the side of them, don't feel limited by that. Use them for the job that works for you best. And if they work for 2 or 3 jobs, great for you, then just use them for 2 or 3 different jobs. Obviously keep them clean, but you know, don't feel limited by what it says on the brush, because actually they can be good for so many different purposes that I just mix and match and do whatever with them. Tap off the excess, and then I know I can just splodge straight in there. I know exactly where my blusher goes. There's my little zigzag motion that I mentioned in my video. And oh dear. If you are interested in how to find where best to put your blusher, then I strongly recommend watching my previous video. Now, blusher is not a complicated thing, and it seems a little bit indulgent to do maybe a 15-minute video on how to apply blusher. If you're the sort of person that likes to know the ideas, the concept behind something, then just finding it out this once will help you for a lifetime of makeup application. And if you work professionally as well, it might be a new take on it that you haven't considered before, that just clicks into place some ideas for you that helps you in some way. So drop me a comment below and let me know how you got on with that technique. This is my other cheek. Okay, now I feel really made up. I do not go to this much effort on a daily basis. Okay, so I've got a lot more colour to my cheeks now. I tend to be anemic most of the time, so I don't have a lot of natural colour to me, so I always have to kind of put it in with makeup. But you can see I've got that sort of natural flash to the side front, and I've got that sort of natural sculpting to the side here, where if I tilt you can see the shadow. And the contour product, my bronze product that I used, has actually just emphasised where that shadow would naturally fall. And that's all you want to do, because then what you're doing is your highlight product is drawing attention to your cheekbone. And what that does is it makes your cheekbone appear higher, fuller and bigger than it actually is. Now the reason that's good is because it's quite youthful. It plumps out the cheeks and it gives the illusion of youth. Now I did say I was going to talk to you about how to use contour products elsewhere. So for example, I've got an oval face shape and that's all well and good. But sometimes I've got a little bit of a, what do we call it? Not a bum, a pouch under here. You can use your bronzer, a matte one. I would not use a light reflecting one, because remember, light reflection draws attention to, whereas a matte one is going to hide. You can actually just use your bronzer underneath to hide your chin. Sometimes, I tell you where I also use it, is just at the corners of my jawbone. As I say, I don't go to this much effort on a daily basis. This is purely for this video. And I would just, if you can imagine where the corner of my jawbone would be, I just soften it off with a little bit of excess bronzer that is on my brush, or a very light amount of bronzer. Nice wide sweeping strokes so that you don't concentrate too much product in any one area. And using a big brush helps with this as well, because it diffuses the amount of product that you apply and it doesn't concentrate it in one area too much. So hence it gives you a more natural finish. So that's how you can use your bronzer, just to sculpt a little bit elsewhere other than just the cheekbones. And the last thing I said I would just talk through is the light reflecting bronzers that you can get. Now they are really, really good for adding a sun-kissed glow to the face. So this is what people mean when they're talking about where the sun would naturally kiss you. You can add a bit of warmth. Now I tend to use my light reflecting bronzers in the summer months, because then you don't have to worry so much about light reflection, because everything is glowy and golden and warm. Whereas this time of the year I tend to want my bronzer to just sculpt and not much else, because it's not realistic to be very sun-kissed this time of the year. So in the summer I would use this, and I'll tell you how I use it. It's very, very simple. I would take a swish of the product. I'm not going to do it now, but I would take a swish of the product, and if I just get my fringe out of the way, I actually create, oh that's a nice look, isn't it? I actually create like a number 3, and where I do it is above the brow bone, along the cheekbone and along the jawbone. Okay, so they are the most prominent bone structures of the face, and that tends to be the main places where you're going to get colour from the sun. Okay, the last thing I do to finish off, obviously I do it on the other side as well, is I just take it down the centre of my nose and a little bit on the centre of my chin at the front. And that's how I would use my light reflecting bronzers that have those shimmery pigments in it. Now, it's not all about Bobbi Brown and Bourjois. There are some other fantastic contouring products out there on the market. And just this month, Clarins have actually released a fantastic contour palette. And it's got your shader product or your bronze product, it's got a highlighter, and it's got a blush. They're all powder based. They're really nice, easygoing colours that are going to suit my skin tones. But they're matte. They're matte products, which means they're fantastic for sculpting. Now, I believe the palette is £36, and I'm going to be checking it out soon. Thanks for watching today, guys. I really hope that's been helpful for you, and I'm pleased to say I didn't cough too much through it, so hopefully you understood everything I was saying as well. If you are new, thank you very much for watching this far in. Please subscribe, and then you'll get all my future videos as well. Take care, and I will see you again soon.